Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Soul Diving Sunday show featuring transformational life coach Shelley Whizin and your hosts Lisa and Nancy. It is the season of giving, and today we're going to talk about the gifts that we can bring, listening, presence, and the nourishment of food. Of course, you know, Shelley is the author of What Do You Bring to the Table? Shelley is the Live and Die Happy coach. And you can keep up with her at ShelleyWhizin.com. She's on LinkedIn. She's on Facebook. She's on Instagram. And newly on Substack. So it's cool if you're there on Substack to look her up. So, hey, how are you doing, Shelley? Are you enjoying the season?
I really am. I'm having such a good time. It's time to be with friends and family, and that's what it's all about. And I'm very excited about that.
Well, you know, it's all about when winter starts coming in, it's about bringing light to the dark because of the weather, you know? And I think that's an exciting thing. So that is a gift. I
Yeah.
think if you look at how humanity, through the specific cultures and religions, everybody shares one thing, and it is about bringing light. So wouldn't that be a gift?
That's a total gift. And what does that even mean? So how do you bring light to somebody's life? You know, I mean, what does that mean? And so it could be your presence, it could be listening, it could be nourishment, it could be something that enlightens, that lights up somebody's life, a compliment, a smile, a phone call, going out for lunch, something that you're giving of yourself brings light to somebody else's life. I love that topic.
Yeah, I think that's, especially nowadays with phones and everybody stuck to their phone and having a conversation and maybe three people gather together and two of them are on the phone. It's like, what's the point? You know,
Yeah.
everybody does want to be heard.
Yeah, that's
So,
right.
yeah, you talk about that and you've got an article, everyone. Check that out. The link is in the episode notes. And you talk about actually listening. So, with all these gatherings, even if it's an intimate one, tell us a little bit better on what we can do to listen more effectively.
Well, first of all, pay attention. There's one thing about listening, and that is really listening to what the other person's saying, not just thinking what it is that you want to say in response to what the person's saying. And so you're preoccupied with what you want to say from what they're saying. So it's truly letting that person know that you hear them, that you're listening, that they feel seen, that they feel heard. To me, it really starts with a genuine interest in the other person. And when you don't have a genuine interest in that other person or what that other person's saying, you can pretty much tell because you can see somebody's either eyes are glazed or you can see they're preoccupied with maybe another thought. So the gift is truly letting that person know that you're listening. Maybe it's not, I happen to nod a lot. When I'm listening and somebody says something that I'm resonating with, my head goes like this or my head goes like this. I can't keep that in. I notice that about myself, even when I'm talking with my clients and they're going on and on and on about something going on in their lives. I'm listening with full intent of listening, of hearing them. Not just hearing words, but listening to what their heart is saying, listening to what the words that aren't being spoken, listening to the feelings that may want to be expressed but are not being expressed. So there's so many different ways of listening, but we want to let somebody know that we see them. Everybody wants to feel seen and heard and loved up. I mean, I was thinking about that the other day. I love loving people up. I love having them feel loved up. And I love them feeling seen and heard. And wow, she's really hearing me. And that's a gift. That's a gift.
Well,
And
I
it's
think our
free.
world has become so crazy, obviously, but there's a lot of good humanity happening as well. There's a lot of beauty, even around the dark part. And that's kind of where I'm going with this season of dark to light. And what I think about the listening is very important. Sometimes we're not able to be present, and then you can say, okay, I'll be able to listen at this point. You know,
Right.
can't listen now, but I can listen at this point, right? But in a
Yeah.
holiday setting, if you let someone actually talk and finish something, right, then you may actually hear what they're trying to say and may not have a political squabble. Like, people want to go, okay, well, what do you believe in this? And they aren't even close to explaining their beliefs, and they get attacked because we've all now programmed to I believe this, you believe that, and that's that. And how do we ever move forward in life if we don't actually hear each other out and take that time? We all need the rain stick or, what do you
Yeah,
call
the talking.
the talking stick? Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And it's interesting you bring up that point, Lisa, because one of the things in being heard and the gift of listening is sometimes reflecting back of what you heard. Maybe what you heard is not what they're wanting to say either. And
Mm.
so sometimes reflecting it back or reiterating, is this what you mean or is this what you said, to clarify
Mhm.
what somebody's saying and not jump to conclusions like you said. And a lot of that, you know where that comes from? It comes from the ego. It comes
Mm.
from the ego wanting to be right, wanting to talk, wanting to make their point. And the ego wants to be right so bad it will find evidence to prove that they're right instead of allowing somebody to have their beliefs, have their feelings, and not necessarily go into battle with them about it because everybody's ego wants to be right.
That is true. And then at this point, you can punish the ego by giving it a Santa stocking stuffed with coal. No, I'm just kidding. Did I mean that? No, not really, because our ego is also a good thing. It's just how we work with it, right?
Well, our ego wakes us up in the morning, gets us dressed, makes us look nice. I mean, if we didn't have an ego, I mean, ego is attached to vanity to a certain degree, but it helps us to brush our teeth and
Mm.
be presentable and, be a human being from one person to another. So I'm not defaming the ego, but what I want to do is help us to be conscious of where do we come from? Do we come from the heart when we speak? Or do we, and many people say, and I don't know who it was that said, you're either interesting or interested. And if
Mhm.
you want to be interesting, then that's more of coming from the ego, wanting somebody to like you, wanting somebody to approve of you, wanting somebody to validate you. But if you're interested in the other person, then you're bringing empathy and you're bringing compassion and you're bringing interest. You're bringing
Mhm.
mutual interest. And I think that's the key to having a healthy relationship with somebody.
And the more you're interested, the more interesting you become because you learn stuff. See, that's how I look at
There you
it.
go.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. But really, listening is really good. And you talk about in your article about the gift of being present. I mean, that is part of listening, but actually being present. So I have a friend and he made us all breakfast one morning and I stood up and started eating and I was like, thank you. It was great. And he got mad. He goes, sit down. You don't just stand and eat something that someone made. You sit down and enjoy it. And I went, you're right, because I was actually in a hurry and whatever, but we were all together. And he goes, we're all together. You sit down and appreciate it and not rush off with food in your mouth. That is
Right.
not being present to the food, to the people who grew the food and raised the food and cooked the food. And I thought, wow, okay, I didn't mean it that way whatsoever, but I'll never do that again,
Right. Right.
you know?
That's a really good point because I know that sometimes we don't appreciate where the food actually came from and all the steps it takes in order to get the food into your mouth. The person who plants the seeds, the farmer who harvests the harvest, the truck driver, the packer putting things into the truck, into a box and then into a truck, and then the truck driver who drives it to the distribution center, and then the person who takes it from there to the store, and the person who stocks it on the shelf, and the person then you buy
Dang
the
it, girl.
item. I mean, there's a lot of steps before that food gets to your mouth. And then when somebody brings it home, like when I'm making a new instinct soup now. I recently made one for my daughter's friend's mother who's in hospice, but she's still eating. So I wanted to make her soup that felt nourishing. So I looked in my refrigerator and I just looked at all the different things that I already had and I put together a soup. And so the same thing, when I'm cooking the soup, I'm thinking about that person while I'm cooking it and I'm infusing it with love. And when you're with somebody, especially I've learned this at the end of life, when you're sitting bedside with somebody who's dying, your presence is so precious because when you can just sit with someone who's dying and they may not even be conscious. When you can sit in silence and have the silence be still, but
Mhm.
be filled with song, be filled with love, be filled with presence so that person feels safe. We want each other to feel safe when we're
Mhm.
around each other. We want to feel safe. And I think that is one of the greatest gifts of being present is that it helps the other person feel safe around you.
That is true. I think that's it. It's that, yeah, you're actually paying attention, you're being calm, it's yeah, I like that. And I think going to the food thing is really good too, because it's true. If something's just slopped together, shoved in the mouth, that's not, I think your body knows it, and
Right,
especially if you're doing it for someone else too.
right, right,
Yeah. I mean, we had bird and breakfast this morning, and that's because I was in a rush, and that wasn't the greatest food, but it
right.
was, I tried. I still
Yeah,
tried.
yeah, yeah.
But how many times you leave your pot alone, and it will burn. You
Right,
want to be present.
right. Present with everything that you do. And that's the gift. So it's a different kind of present, but
Mm,
it's a present nonetheless that doesn't cost anything.
mm,
And it's the gift that keeps on giving when you're present with somebody, because somebody knows when you're preoccupied. It goes
mhm,
back to listening. Somebody knows when you're not really listening. I know sometimes I get preoccupied, and if I'm talking to my sister on the phone and I'm looking at my email, right,
mhm.
in a
Yeah.
moment, and she's going, "Okay, I see that you're not paying attention. We'll talk later." So she can pick it up in an instant. And then I
Yeah.
feel badly and I go, "Why don't you just be present?
Mhm.
Listen, pay attention,
And if you
give the gift."
can't, for some reason,
Say
then say it and go, again, we'll have to do this later when I can be fully present. And if you are having those moments of too much of not being present, it probably means you're not being present for yourself. Just the same thing as my cooking drama is telling me you need to eat breakfast. You're not being present with yourself at this moment or who you're making it for. And
right.
so I'm looking at this time of year as also a time of reflection. While we're with the holidays, if we're present with the people we love, maybe we'll learn more from them.
Mm,
And then if we're feeling rattled all the time, isn't this kind of that time of year where we can go, maybe I'm going to give myself a present of being present for myself and take some
yeah,
time out?
that's good. Yeah, taking time out is a very good
I'm
thing.
learning, Miss Shelley.
Yeah, you are.
I think life gives you those little jolts. Sometimes, I didn't want a burnt breakfast, but it sure told me something. You weren't being present. Why weren't you being
Right.
present?
So remember in my book, I've got these happy mindful
Yes,
meditations.
those.
And I know that you know what I did? I went on Audible and I bought my book, Audible, to see what it was like to listen to my
Hmm.
book with my words and my voice and the concepts. And what was interesting about that is I learned even more than when I wrote it. It was like helping me to remember, and I do those bite-sized, reminders at the end of each chapter, but helping me to remember that before I go into the kitchen, bring love there, bring
Mm-hmm.
joy there into the experience. Because when I'm rushing and I'm harried and that energy goes into the food, whether you realize it or not. And then we burn or we do whatever we do with when we're not paying attention. So it's intention, attention, and then we tend to, that's where that word tend, we tend to a garden. So we intend to bring a nice energy into whatever we do, even if it's washing the dishes. And last week or before Thanksgiving, I did a 3-hour live TikTok for the fun of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just showed people I was making sweet potato casserole, garlic mashed potatoes, and a carrot cake. And I was surprised how many people stayed online. And some moments were silent because I wasn't, you know, talking or I was doing something. But being able to bring your presence into what you're doing and who you're speaking to, it really helps the union of humanity, I think.
Well, I think also over the holiday season, a lot of times we are in social events that we may not want to be at. And maybe we
Mm,
have to because of work, family, you can't
mhm.
win them all, right?
Yeah.
And then we tend to not be present, and all you wanna do is get out of there. We know those things, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And I kind of maybe think, it used to be, "Oh, just have a glass of wine, it'll be fine," but that's not a good pathway, right, for many people. But I kind of feel like if you go 100% into the moment and be present, it won't be as bad. You know what I mean? It's like you already know these are the
right.
behaviors of these people I'm not really into. I don't want to be here. But you already know, okay, but I'm there, so I might as well make the most of it in some way. And if
That
there are people that are rude or mean or something, you can just go, that's their behavior.
I always say to my clients when they're around somebody who's negative, and sometimes that somebody is their partner,
Oh, yeah.
and or their mother-in-law, and they're complaining about them, saying they're so negative, they're so mean, it's so hard to be around them. I lose my patience. I just want to jump on them. And I say to them, watch them like a movie, like you're watching a TV show, and they're playing this character in this show or movie, and they're doing a really good job. And then you can detach from their behavior and not personalize it. It's when we personalize it. I use Don Miguel's 4 agreements all the time. Be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions and do the best you can.
Yeah, I love that. The whole idea of because that's a present you can give to yourself. And it's
All of
funny.
those.
It
Yeah.
becomes funny. It
Yeah.
does.
And you get to detach and then look at it and witness it without judging it and damning them like they're, quote, damning everything else. And then you get plugged into that energy of finger pointyitis, which, the way I feel about that. So it's just a way to detach, be present with your love, be present with what you're bringing, be present with your part in what you play in your life. Take responsibility for your being snitty or snotty or impatient or unkind. Take responsibility for yourself and let
Yeah.
everybody else take responsibility for their self, because there's one thing I know for sure, and that is you cannot control anybody else
No,
ever,
no,
ever, ever, ever.
no, you can't. And then they are controlling you.
Well, it's
Uh, here she
the
goes. She's got the
remote control.
remote.
When you give somebody else the remote control over your sense of well-being, and you've heard me say this many times, then you're giving them the power over you. And then guess what? You get to blame them. You get to have finger pointyitis, bring that out, because you get to blame them for how you feel. But it's not right. It's not fair. It's not right to give somebody else the power over your sense of well-being.
That's right. That's right. And
So,
you do have the ability to say no
yes,
and leave if you
yeah,
can. But he's in a different situation,
right.
so that we have to be careful on that. Everyone's in that. There is a way to just kinda step outside the zone? I have
Yeah.
those out of body experiences a lot where I step out and I'm looking around and go, "Oh, you're slumping in your chair again, girl, sit up." You know what I mean? I even
Yeah.
just did that. I do. It's not like woo-woo stuff, but it's just that kinda like, "What's going on here?" You know? Take a look. I think it's being very present. It's take a good look around you once in a while because we keep all go, 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 and I don't think that's good for our bodies.
Yes.
Hmm?
Being conscious of where you are, being conscious of where your feet are planted. And let's not forget that wherever your feet are planted is where you are and where you've taken yourself.
Yeah.
Nobody carried you there. You walked there, you drove there, you took yourself wherever you want to go. So just make the best of wherever you are so that you can enjoy yourself, for
Yeah.
God's sake.
And if you need to leave the place you're in, make a plan.
And go without feeling animosity or anger or any of that stuff. You
There's
just
always another life within our
always,
lives,
yeah,
you know? There really is. I mean, you can always make the choice. We always have that choice to be happy no matter what. I mean, so many devastating things happen in life. And I was talking to a gentleman, a dancer, about that, about Africa. And we were talking about resiliency. And, there's so many, you can drive through parts of Africa and people are like, oh, I don't want to see this. There's starving kids. And yes, there are. And many parts of the world, including our own here in the United States. And we just don't want to see, we don't want to see. But the kids I'm talking about still smile. still find some kind of happiness because they're in that moment, and it's like they do something to keep themselves happy. They find some kind of joy, because it's like you're living on this survival mode, but it's your choice of, okay, if this is my day to go, I'm still going to remember that the grass is green over here. Look at this flower that bloomed over here. It's a really bad day, but look at this flower, and when it's a season of darkness from winter, we've got all this light, twinkly lights. And isn't that magical anyway, no matter what your
I
beliefs
love
are?
lights. I love
Too.
to drive around and see people put up lights. It's just magical.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
unity. It's
Yeah.
unity. And that's what a light does. We get to be a light and then it spreads.
Yes. That's
I
right.
like that. I like that.
I
Well,
like
Miss Shelley, I hope you have a wonderful holiday season, you and your family. And everyone, again, you want to know about giving a great gift. What Do You Bring to the Table is a wonderful book about being conscious. Recipes are in there, those meditative moments. It's a great book to start your new year, but it's also a great gift, and it's a great source for the holiday season to help you through it, and with recipes, and to have those moments of Zen while you deal with things. Enjoy.
it.
Likes the joy. Yes.
Yeah.
So everyone, ShelleyWhizin.com. Thanks so much, Shelley.
Thank you. Always happy holidays.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio's Soul Diving Sunday show featuring transformational life coach Shelley Whizin. Follow Shelley at ShelleyWhizin.com. Follow us at BigBlendRadio.com.